Hey there, Suzi here. Before we get into today's episode, I want to share this special message with you. Now, my co-host Michelle and I love masterminds. Not only do we belong to masterminds, but we also host a mastermind. We started it almost 8 years ago, and it is the premier mastermind for women business owners who want to grow their business with a specific focus on marketing. Now, this group is usually completely booked out, and very occasionally we open the doors and invite a handful of women in. So if you're growing your business, but you're struggling with feeling overwhelmed, or like you constantly have a split focus when it comes to your marketing, this could be exactly what you're looking for. We have an amazing time together, and the women in the group are extraordinary. They're great cheerleaders, supporters, advisors, and colleagues for you. And they're also seeing extraordinary results. We see people cracking the $1 million, $2 million, $3 million mark, launching new e-commerce sites that go from $0 to $10,000 a month in sales. They're doubling their conversion rates, they're growing memberships, they're selling courses, they're growing their personal brands, and they're getting all kinds of media exposure and speaking opportunities and so much more. You can learn more about the mastermind and join the wait list over at herbusinessmastermind.com. We're going to open the doors soon, so you definitely want to be on the list to get an invitation. So head on over to herbusinessmastermind.com. Hi, you're listening to the Content Sells Podcast, the show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 188. I'm Suzi Dafnis, and here with me is my co-host, Michelle Falzon. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, Suzi, I am great. Thank you. And really looking forward to today's show because this is something that over the years I've had to learn how to master, and I've had to do it many, many times. So that means I've had lots of opportunity to get to some mastery, and it also means I've made just about every mistake in the book. Mm-hmm. And so through a process of trial and error, over that time, I've found I've finally got quite good at it, and I get comments all the time about how effectively I get it done. And Suzi, I know this is a superpower of yours also.
It's actually something I like to do. I don't know why. It's a bit crazy, but I like to do it. I think it's because we have very specific ideas about what we want. And it allows us to go, for me anyway, it allows me to go really into the weeds, like this, not this, that, not that. So anyway, that's what I think it is a bit for me. It's my OCD. But yeah, like you, over time, after making all the mistakes and seeing what works and doesn't, I've found a way to do this really effectively. But it can be something that either flies under the radar in terms of how important people think it is, or it can just be tough to get it right, especially if you're just starting out and you don't have the distinctions. So we wanted to take some time to give you some of our hard-won tips and strategies. And what we're talking about here is how to effectively brief a graphic designer, because so much of what we do as marketers has a design element. Whether it's your branding, your website design, your lead magnet, your ebook cover, your Facebook ads, the style of your social posts, or the brochure that you leave with clients, or the look and feel of your online course or membership, or that banner you have at the local trade show. So much of everything that has us present ourselves to the world has a level of design. Now, in our last episode 187, we talked about how design was one of the content marketing tasks that you might consider outsourcing as soon as possible. So we thought today we'd build on that and share some of the advice that we're regularly giving our members and our masterminders and clients about how to brief their designers.
I love this topic. I mean, we've got so many things to say about it. But, you mentioned the importance of a good design brief can sometimes fly under the radar, Suzi. And I think that is totally true. I really would go so far as to say that a design project is almost won or lost on the brief. And here's the peril of not giving a good design brief, because people who are in a rush, they just go, look, skip the brief. Let's just get the designer to do it. But that is really false economy. And taking time to really do a thorough brief has so many benefits. But I'm going to start by convincing you of all the things that it's costing you not doing a design brief. So, for example, the big one is you don't get what you want. Like when you don't give an adequate brief to a designer, it's very hard for them to fulfill that brief. It's kind of like walking into a hair salon and saying, look, I've got this hairstyle in mind. Could you just do it? And then wondering, why that mohawk is not what you wanted. But if you can go in with a photograph and maybe a video and say, I really like it like this, but maybe more like this other picture's length, then the hairdresser knows exactly what you want. So that's one of the perils of not giving a good design brief. It almost always costs more money because there's more time involved. You think you're saving time, but you're actually taking up more time. So that's the other problem. It just takes you longer. If you had a big deadline, it's actually going to be harder for you to meet that deadline if you don't give an adequate brief. Suzi, this is a big one for me. It can be so frustrating.
You speak from experience.
I don't know who's listening right now that can possibly relate, but you ask a designer to do something, but you didn't document it. You didn't write it down. You didn't give the examples. You didn't take the time. And then they give you something back and you go, no, that's not it. So then you have a 5-minute conversation or a 5-hour conversation and you think, right, I'm going to get it this time. No, they've done 2 of the things, but not 3 of the things. And all of that can be completely shortcut by offering a really fantastic brief. The other thing that's a byproduct of this that I've found is that designers don't prioritize your work. If you're hard to work with, if you make it tough for them and they've got to choose between you and somebody else, very often they'll put your work back. And conversely, I know designers will often prioritize my work because it's easy. I make it easy for them. But the most important thing is that your marketing and your results suffer.
Oh, I love this topic. One of the traps I was thinking about while you were speaking was how, especially if we don't know a lot about design, we can think, well, they're the expert. They're going to know what to do. And that will trip us up. And this is a lesson not just in designing for your marketing, but in any part of your business. They're the expert HR consultant. They're the expert financial person. You need to know enough to be a little bit dangerous, right? Because you need to know what it is that you're after. And this brief process that we're going to give you today, not so much a process, we're going to take you through some of the steps, is so important to doing all those things Michelle said, getting what you want, having it come in at the right amount of money, not being frustrating, not being long-winded and taking you forever. And so I still sometimes fall into this trap at a different level with some of the design work that we get done. I'll go like, just give me a this. And I think, oh, well, they'll know what I mean because maybe we've done this sort of thing before, or somehow I think they can read my mind. And I get that, but it's not what was in my mind. And so given how important this is, and then, anyway, it ends up having to be redone. It takes twice as much time. So given how important this point is, and the upside of getting it right, you do get a great brand. You do get more results. It is more cost effective and it's even fun in the process. I know how gratifying it is to see a designer really nail the brief. And that starts with giving them the best chance for success by investing some time and energy into the brief. Now, this is important whether they're an in-house designer or an external designer. It's still the same process. It's really doing the legwork first to do the brief. So here are some of our top tips for briefing a graphic designer.
And we have so many tips on this. We are holding ourselves back. We're trying to just give you the things that we think are going to be the most relevant to you. But, if you would like to sit and talk with us for a day on this, Suzi and I are totally up for it. So first off, I want to say, don't give up on a designer if you see potential in their work. As long as they keep getting better and more in line with your vision, I really want to encourage you to work on developing them. Now, some designers are just lost causes. I can tell straight away if I'm going to be able to work with a designer or not, if they have it. And you may be able to tell pretty well straight away whether they have the potential or not. But if they have that potential, and this is where it's relevant to today's topic, the better your brief is, the better the outcome of that job. And also the faster that they're going to zone into your design ethos and give you more and more wonderful designs ongoing. So that brief is really, and people don't look at it this way, but I think this is one of the best aspects of writing a great brief. It's a great way to develop designers. It's a great way to get in simpatico with your designer. And that's what you want. A great designer who gets you is one of the most valuable people you can have in your team when doing content marketing, direct marketing, online marketing, any kind of marketing.
And so this is about building a relationship, and this matters whether you're doing something once, twice a year, or whether you have like really heavy design needs. It's still about getting someone who gets you and who you feel like you can work with. Because like Michelle said, once you find someone, you can keep going back to them. Your design needs are not going to go away. So it's worth nurturing that relationship with the right person. The other thing is to do a written brief. Now, this might sound like overkill, but even if it's not perfect, having a document that centralizes the information, we're going to tell you what information in a moment, gives them some examples, shows them things you like, shows them things you don't like. Keeping these documents, it's amazing how many times you'll go back and be able to use them and reuse them, but you always want to do a written brief. You never just want to dial it in by just going, by doing it verbally. Like, again, like I said, this applies to training a new staff member, on how to do anything, answer the phones, or do people still answer phones? You know what I mean? But writing a written brief, even if it needs to be fast and not perfect, is better than no brief.
Amen, sister. I want to put like a +1, a love heart, clapping hands, symbols, all the things of what you're saying there. I am such a huge fan of the written brief, and it is a discipline, and you will want to not do it, but just stay disciplined around it. And I like to use Google Docs as the place where I put the written brief, because they're easy to collaborate in. So you can share it with your designer. So very often the designer and I are making comments down the side and changing things on the fly and resolving things. Like, you can keep the document very alive and active. The brief gets a lot of energy through the project. You can also add things to it later, right? If you give them a fixed PDF or a Word document, and then you think, oh, damn, I forgot to say X or Y, there's nothing you can add to it. So using a collaboration tool like Google Docs or any other of your preferred collaboration tools, I highly recommend. It's great for making comments, providing extra information. It's got lots of tools. It's built for collaboration. But here's the other really good part about the discipline of writing a written brief. And I learn this every time I write a written brief. I think I know what the project is. But when I go and actually start to write the written brief, I realize, I haven't thought about that. Oh, wait, what does that mean for that? And so getting into the discipline of writing the brief and providing good information to your designer is actually part of the process of you getting clearer on even what the project is and getting more strategic about the project. So it's a massive upside, a byproduct of having this discipline in place.
I love all that. I also use Google Docs, and we also have a project management software. So if there is a design that's related to, say, a new online course that we're doing, then in our project management software, I might outline what the design task will be, but I don't put the details, because certainly the tools that we've seen and used aren't really built for that, because they're not collaboration tools the same way Google Docs is. So we too will set up a Google Doc as the place to put the brief, but it's also where we can link to a Dropbox file of logos or photos that we want them to consider, or source material, or other marketing that exists for this product or service that we might want them to refer to or reference in their work that they're doing. And because it is collaborative, because of the functionality that's available in Google Docs, it's very, very simple. But the biggest part is that you can collaborate. So you can bring in the essential people other than you and the designer who might need to be part of that, without having to have people on your server or wherever else you might have things, or in your team management software. So that is the value of a written brief. Do not skimp on this. You will say, oh, but this is just a logo, or this is just whatever. You will thank us for it. And if you don't do this the first time, you will be doing it the second time, because it's very painful not to do it. So what do you put in this brief that we talk of? Well, the first thing is to put the ideal client that this visual brief is for. So who is going to be looking at this design in its final format, who does it need to appeal to? If you've done an ideal client avatar document, which is something we recommend to our mastermind members, we've done an episode about that. It's right here on the show. You can even include your ideal client avatar document, but you need them to know who it's for, because something that they're designing for a 7-year-old girl is very different to an HR manager, is very different to a woman in menopause. Now, that might sound really obvious, but you want them to really know who it's for. And the more, again, you don't have to go to overcomplicating it, but what are the key things that you want them to know? The other thing is, what is the goal of the project? Right? Let them know this is designed to sell. This is designed to generate leads, whatever it is. They don't have to be a marketer. And here's the thing I know about designers, I don't know about you, Michelle. Often they're really good at making things pretty, but they don't necessarily go into they're just looking at making something pretty. They're not thinking about it selling. So you have to be really intentional about, this is what the purpose of this thing is. We don't just want something that's pretty. It needs to do these things. So everything I've given you in this brief is designed to do that. Now, it helps if you're a good marketer. So there's no doubt that Michelle's briefs are great, because she's also a great marketer. So it's going to have great copy. She's going to give them good direction. She knows what images to use. But even if that's not you, you want them to know what the goal of the project is. Were you going to say something, Michelle?
No, I'm lapping this up. I'm taking notes.
Good. The deadline. They have to know what the deadline is, and you want to get agreement and alignment on that deadline from the outset. Now, that's going to be, this is when you're going to see the first draft. This is when you're going to see the second draft. You get 2 free revisions before you have to pay more. This is when I need to have it at the printer by this, and all the details that go with that. But you definitely want the deadline, right? Because we have seen, Michelle, we have seen the cover of a lead magnet take months because there wasn't an agreement about when this thing was going to be done by the designer, and they're fitting you in between other things. Case notes. So do you need this work to be in black and white as well as color? Because the output is going to be in both. If you're printing and you've only budgeted for black and 1 color, or 2 colors, or full color, then you want the designer to know that. If you are getting this image that they're creating blown up to fit a 6-foot wall, well, that's a very different design requirement than if it's going to be a tiny digital cover for your podcast show. Is it going to be part of a slide deck where the images are going to build in stages? Then what are those stages? How does it all need to come together? All this context is really important to them to understand and to know and to take into account with their design. You might also have some must-haves. For example, it must use our logo, and our logo only ever appears in this resolution and in these colors. For instance, our logo can only ever appear in the true colors of our logo, or in all black, or in all white. You can't use a feature color from another page and stick it into our logo and make that okay. No, it's not. So that's a must-have. I have other must-haves. I've had lots of must-haves. I have other must-haves, like if it's an image of a human being that has a name, someone we know, they could be an executive in your organization, it could be you, it could be a client, that, they are never to flip the photograph. That is part of the brief. Like, that is a must-have. We never flip someone's photo, because that's not how their face really looks like. Like those little things that you only learn over time. Or, I have another must-have is that if a sentence is more than 3 lines, you never center all the copy. You never use reverse text out of medium depth colors. Like I have a bit of a psychosis around this, Michelle, as you can tell. Like I have lots of must-haves, but it's better for the designer to know that. Like, don't give me too low contrast colors, or these are our branding guidelines. These are how we use the colors. This is how we don't use the colors. This is where you can place a logo, where you cannot. We always use, for instance, in our brand, we use usually corner rounds, which means it's not a perfect square. The edges are cut off. So those sorts of things are going to save you so much going back and forth. Now, you might not know all those things right now, but the more you do this sort of work, the more you're going to have a template that's going to make the job so much easier for the designer, because they're not going to come with all your portraits or customer photos in circles, because you never use circles. Your brand is that you use square or corner rounds or a drop shadow or whatever those things are that are part of your aesthetic.
Yeah, and I don't look at this as a psychosis. Maybe it's because I have a shared psychosis with you.
I don't
know. But I do look at it from the point of view of the written brief. The great thing is that so a lot of these must-haves, you rinse and repeat them every time. And you can, if you've got that list of 10 things, like the corner rounds and all of those examples you just gave, they're not going to change from brief to brief. It's not like you've got to go and reinvent that wheel every time. And then as you think of something else and you go, oh, I should add that to my list of must-haves, you gradually can build that up over time. And it's incredibly valuable. And I think what you've just demonstrated there, Suzi, is exactly what it looks like in the real world. When we say, hey, writing the brief saves time and frustration, well, there you've just given the perfect example, which is if a designer gets all that, and they go, oh, right, okay, they're not going to give you a circle, which saves one more loop in design feedback, more of your time, more of their time, more money, more frustration. All of that's gone because you just had it in that list of things that you just copy from brief to brief. So I think it's really great. And the other thing I wanted to say about that is when you give a designer a great brief and they still give you a circle, it's a sign of, okay, maybe this isn't the designer for me. Now, see my earlier point about sticking with designers, because if they've got talent, they might have just missed that point, right? But you're giving somebody the best chance to succeed with a great brief, and you're also giving those designers that aren't ever going to be able to rise to the challenge an opportunity to tell you that's who they are as well. And it's good to find that out sooner rather than later. So I think, to match your must-haves and all the great things that we've been talking about so far that you want to put in your design brief, like the project title, the goal of the project, the deadline, those use case notes, like how are we going to use this design, the must-haves, the branding guidelines. There's a couple of more things. And sort of to balance out the must-haves, one of the things I like to put into a brief is the must-avoids. So anything you don't want. And like Suzi, we had a little conversation the other day, as we do with maybe we're the only people in the world that have these conversations. I don't know. But we had a conversation about the merits of drop shadows.
Oh, yes. One of my least favorite design elements. Do you want to date your marketing by about 30 years? Use drop shadows.
So that could go in the must avoids list for Suzi, right? So anything you do not want, get it on that must avoids list. It's just helping them to stopping them from stepping in the doo-doo straight away. And if you can give visual examples of that, all the better. So you might actually say it's this, not this. If you see two examples of sales pages, one you don't like, one you do like, showing that to a designer, not only the one you do like, but the one you don't like, is incredibly valuable to them. It can be those must avoids, the stuff I don't like, can be even more valuable for them. It does require work ahead of time, but that's what the brief is. So we're just going to say, just suck that up, because that's how it is, but it's going to save you so much down the line. Now, I hinted at visual references, and it's not just when it comes to what you must avoid, but visual references. And this is probably why I love design briefs so much, is because in addition to all the things we've talked about, it gives you an opportunity to go and provide some visual references, some visual examples of what you're looking for. Now, this could be anything. You're not limited to what we talk about here. So if you've got other things that make sense here to include, go for it. But it can include things like screenshots of other pages from maybe even completely different industries, or somebody in your industry that you really like and you're not going to copy it, but you just like that color, or you like the way their hero image on their website is like this, or you love this particular aspect. Layouts that you like, even though you might not like the actual information that's on the page, but you like the fact there's 3 squares at the top and then that big square down the bottom. All of that's really, really helpful. And what I like to do is put the visual reference in, and then I put some notes next to that reference. So here's what I like about this. I'm not saying it has to be that color at all, but I do like those 3 boxes or something like that. Stock images that you like, or images that you already own and want to use. And another tip, this just helps me think about a project, because remember we were saying earlier that the visual brief helps you to think about your project, to get strategic, is I like to do Google Images searches, or I search stock image sites for relevant imagery. Like if we were doing something about how to be more focused, for example, I might just type how to be more focused into Google and then choose the image search option and just look at what comes up. And it will spark thoughts for me about if I'm designing a logo for an event, or if I'm looking for a graphic that I want to create as a model for my course, or whatever it might be. It just gives me a whole bunch of inspiration. And I might pick several images from there. Most of them I don't really like, but there's one aspect of it that I like. And through that, the designer can sort of piece together, I like this color, but the font's pretty terrible. Or another one, hey, that font's really gorgeous, but everything else I hate. And they can piece together what I'm liking, what might work. So, for example, if I'm briefing in a model, and I do a lot of work with clients where I help them kind of consolidate their intellectual property into concise models that communicate a lot of information very simply. Let's say I want that model to be in the pyramid style. I'm thinking that's a concept where it's like there's a big thing at the foundation leading progressively up to some sort of tippy top thing. Then I would search the web for what's out there around pyramid style model, or I'd search image sites that have models as icons in their library. And often I would include several images and then write notes about each image, what I like, what I don't like. I don't like that color scheme, but I like how it's done in 3D style, or I like it how it's lines coming off the side with each text to describe each section. So let them know what you do and don't like visually. These people are visual creators. This will be the biggest bang for your buck. The other thing just is any copy or content that needs to be included. So any table of contents, if there's a letter from me at the front, if it's a brochure and there's going to need to be several pieces of copy, I very often supply just a text-based version of the doc. And as Suzi said earlier, include it as a link. You can just put all the relevant links up the top of your brief. And in that doc, I might sort of put placeholders for where I might want images, or I might just put a few notes like, I see this maybe as a call out box, maybe a different color to the rest of the content, just little instructions like that.
Obviously, if your job is something really simple, you might do everything we've just said. I don't think there's anything I would omit, but you do it at a very high level. But for more complex jobs, for instance, designing a new website or a multi-page catalog, or a whole new suite of materials, then you might want to invest more time. And I really want you'll start to develop and know the answers to the questions. And so what I don't want you to do is just give your power and authority away to someone because they're a designer or they're a web designer or anything like that. When you can guide someone, you're making their life easier and you're going to get a better result. So, you might not need a 10-page brief for the job that you want a designer to do, but you might. And once you've done something once and you've established a look, feel, fonts, color combinations, images, etc., then you might create derivatives of that design. And so you don't need a complex brief. You're just like, yep, this is for this campaign, same sort of look and feel, same font, colors, these particular graphic elements that we're using, but here's the copy for that. Or we're just going to switch out these couple of images. Or the order form looks slightly different because it's a different product or service. But generally, you'll start to develop these styles, and that's where longevity with a designer is going to serve you better than going here to there. Of course, if you have an experience and you're not happy with someone, you might want to move on. But if it starts to work, then it gets easier and easier because you can start to second guess yourselves. To second guess is the wrong word. You can start to be able to guess and assume the style and font and colors because you start to work together. They'll start to get to know what are your avoids, what are your must-haves, what your branding guidelines are, who your ideal client is. But you might need to tell them the goal, or you might say, you know what, this is for a slightly different ideal client. This person is older or more senior or younger or whatever the case may be. But none of this work that you do in the design brief is going to go to waste.
Yes, wise words. Nothing is wasted in the design brief. So many times I just get so much clearer on the project. And I think whether it's the designer you've worked with a long time or it's a new designer, the more you do the design brief, the more you buy into the discipline of a design brief, you just develop a language. You get more competent at explaining visual things, or you understand a bit more of the terminology too. You learn from your designers, and you just keep up leveling your brief. So it's one of those kind of virtuous cycles. The better you get at the brief, the better the outcomes are, the more money you save, the more time you save, the more fun you have, et cetera, et cetera. And Suzi, one last thing I would mention, once you've done the brief, again, for a small job, you might just send them the brief, like, you email it to them, or you send it to them on your messaging system, whatever you use. Hey, here's the brief. But if it's a new designer or if it's a bigger project, I often like to book a little time to talk the brief through with the designer. So I may send it ahead and just say, here's the brief. Can we talk about it at 1:00 or whatever time? And it doesn't have to be a long meeting, but point out the main things in the brief, get any questions answered the designer might have, get agreement around the timings and also the process. Maybe you've got a couple of questions for them. And that short consult is, again, another really productive thing to do when kicking off a project, because sometimes you think your brief is great, and this has happened to me even now, but there's a complete fundamental misunderstanding about the project, and it comes up in that conversation. So that's a real recommendation. And gee, I know you might be listening to this going, oh my God, that just feels like a lot of work. But you can choose. Will you front load the work and do a great brief? Or will you try to skip this crucial step? But then the work happens down the line. Like, there's no way to avoid this piece of the puzzle. I personally prefer to do it at the front of the project and save myself lots of revisions, lots of rework, lots of costs. So I know which one I prefer. And my designers always, without fail, tell me how much they love the visual briefs I provide, which is great feedback. It makes me feel good. They prioritize my work. It's just, I know they're looking forward to it. It just changes the whole tone of a project. It makes you easy to work with, and they will often prioritize your work over others. I've had that happen many times. And like I said, less revisions, less back and forth. It's good for them. They can, if they're especially working on a project basis, they know they're going to really make their money out of your project because it's not going to drag on, which is a big fear designers have. And there's more chance that that first draft is not too far from what you hoped for. And my happy place is co-creating, is creating with people, being creative, seeing that my mind and their mind together created something special. And so the brief just really sort of ignites that. So that's why I love a great brief.
I hope that these tips help you. We would love to know, maybe you've got some other great tips for briefing that you've used that other listeners might benefit from. If that is the case, let us know over on our Facebook page. If you just search for Content Sells Podcast on Facebook, you'll find us there. We also mentioned in this episode that in the previous episode, we looked at 5 content marketing tasks that you might want to consider outsourcing, and that design was one of them. You can catch that whole episode over on episode 187. So wherever you're listening right now, if you just go back one episode to that podcast episode, it's called 5 Content Marketing Tasks to Outsource Today. Now, we cannot let you go today without letting you know that the doors to our Marketing Success Mastermind are about to open soon. What does that mean? The doors are opening. What it means is that we only welcome women into our mastermind. We only open up applications a couple of times a year, and we're getting very close to one of those times in the year. Like right now, starting the day that this episode goes live, we are running our 30-day marketing, what's it called? Mastermind experience program.
We were just talking about this, how we keep stumbling over the name. And I'm going to just say it, the Mastermind Experience. The Mastermind Experience.
The Mastermind Experience. The Mastermind Experience is now on. We've got an incredible group of women who we're working with for 30 days who are going to get an experience of what it's like to work with me and Michelle on their design briefs, on their lead magnets, on their courses, on their e-commerce stores, on their consulting services over 30 days. And so it's like a deep dive. And so if you've missed that opportunity, all is not lost. We are going to be opening up applications to the Marketing Success Mastermind, which is our year-long marketing program. And it is the leading women's business mastermind in Australia. And it is how you can escape overwhelm and get the support you need along with a focused plan that actually works to get more of your ideal clients, to make a difference to your business and to help you create the business you love. It is a marketing mastermind. It is called the Marketing Success Mastermind. It is about 6 years in, and it's an incredible group of like-minded women who are doubling and tripling their revenue. They're creating new marketing funnels. They're growing their audiences and their income. It is by application. And as I said, we only ever open up when we have a few places available, and we do that usually twice a year. And the time is coming very, very soon. Right now, when you head on over to herbusinessmastermind.com, you'll see that you can join the wait list. What that does is it puts you at the front of the line to get an application when applications open up in just a couple of weeks. So this is something that is just building momentum. We're getting so many requests. And if you listen to the show, even for a few episodes, you will have heard us talk about our incredible masterminders and the wins that they are having and the progress that they're making, because they're in an environment, and we both love masterminds, Michelle and I, we're in an environment where it's normal to talk about marketing and to have marketing be the biggest lever in your business to help you really grow and scale a more sustainable, more profitable business. Michelle, anything you want to say?
Oh, I want to join that mastermind after what you've just said. And I'm like, yay, I'm already in it. And all I want to say is that I just before this episode we started recording, I glanced in the Facebook group. We have a dedicated Facebook group for our masterminders, and it's going off in there today. There are so many wins happening. And just one of our masterminders right now, she has just smashed her goal, and she's still got 6 days to go before she opens her program. So now she's on to like her stretch goal, and she's saying, I never thought, what did she say exactly? She said, I never thought this was possible, and now it is a reality. Thank you to everyone in this group who has supported me along the way. And I get goosey when I read things like that because everyone does support everyone. It is one of the most supportive environments. And I think as business owners, we are so often alone. We are so often unsupported. And so you can tell we're passionate. You can tell we love it. If this is speaking to you, come on over. We want to talk to you. Come and apply.
Yeah, so herbusinessmastermind.com is where you'll find all the information. Now, I hope you enjoyed our very passionate plea for you to brief a graphic designer with a brief. And we love to share these tips and strategies with as many women as possible. This show is building in popularity. We get great feedback. We get great reviews, which brings me to asking you if you would be willing to leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. So this one here I'm going to read out. This is one of our Her Business members. Her name is Amanda Fryer. She has a business called Driving Diabetes, and she works with people with diabetes to help them manage their health. And she said this. She said, 5 stars. Big thank you, Suzi, for instructing on how to post a review. So I told our members how to post a review because she wanted to post and she wasn't sure how to. So many great episodes, but this one today was gold. After launching our book, Get Smart with Type 2 Diabetes and getting Channel 9 coverage, I hadn't thought to put this news on our homepage where we have our book for sale. So many other great tips and insights. She said, I wrote 2 pages listening to this one particular episode, which was called How to Tap into a Journalist's Curiosity. She says, now to implement more of them. We now have our Seen on Channel 9 on our page, Driving Diabetes, where we help busy people manage their type 2 diabetes more simply and confidently through our book, online course, and membership. So that is Amanda Fryer. Thank you for the 5-star review. And if you watch closely, you'll see what has Amanda done. 1, she's done us a great favor by giving us a review. 2, she gets a shout out here on the show. So thousands and thousands and thousands of people are going to hear us call out her name and mention her book. So might be a tip in there for you. Thank you, Amanda. And so, yes, we would love a rating or review. Now, finally, before we go, we mentioned a few resources here on the episode. We want to make sure that you have access to those goodies and their links to other episodes and all sorts of things. So we're going to put those details over at herbusiness.com/graphic design brief. So that's herbusiness.com/graphic design brief. And I want to give you one more time the link if you want to inquire about the mastermind program. That is herbusinessmastermind.com. All righty, Michelle, what have we got coming up in the next episode?
I'm really looking forward to this one, Suzi. It is an interview with a really inspiring woman, somebody that I absolutely love and is so super smart with business. And she's also been really successful. But what I really like about her story is how relatable it is. She is going to share with us how she went from 1,000 visitors to her site a month. And that may be where some of our listeners are now, or even, maybe you're getting 100 visitors a month, or maybe you've got a couple of thousand visitors a month and you want to take it further. Well, she went from 1,000 site visits a month to now she gets 500,000 visitors to her site every month. And that's a journey that she's taken. She's going to share with us the top strategies she's got for that growth. And it's possible for you too. If you've got that number right now around that, you're hovering around the hundreds or the thousands of people to your site every month, I'm here to tell you, Suzi's here to tell you, and our guest is here to tell you it is possible for you too to grow to that kind of number. And think about what that means for your business. Imagine 500,000 people every month seeing your offers, clicking on your links, opting into your email address, buying your programs, joining your free lead magnets. It is mind-blowing. And she has created an incredible global off the back of it. Can't wait to talk to her and share it with you.
And, maybe for you, it's going from 1,000 to 500,000. Maybe it's just doubling what you've got now, because if you could just double the visits to your site, you're going to double the number of sales you're getting. But here's what I know is going to happen in that episode. Not only will you get how to get more visits, but I bet we're going to have some amazing gems on what makes a website work. And so you definitely want to tune in. That's coming up in the next episode of the Content Sells podcast. So you want to be sure to subscribe to the show. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and click the subscribe button, whatever app you're listening in, there's going to be one. And you'll get that next interview, which will show you how to scale the number of visitors to your site. Michelle, anything you want to say before we go today?
Design a brief. Do it.
Hashtag design a brief, do it. Thanks, Michelle. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Content Sells podcast. Bye for now.